The Pittsburgh Pirates bullpen has had its issues this season, but I'm going to tell you why it seems like it's finally finding its footing.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day. My name is Ethan Smith. You can follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates. I am a lifelong Pittsburgh Pirate fan, and I have turned that fandom of the Pittsburgh Pirates into news, analysis, opinions, and reactions for all of you Monday through Friday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Visit tnusa.com/lockedon or call 1-800-549-1000 so the IRS does not come after you. And on today's show, we're going to be talking about the bullpen finding its footing, the improvements that it's made over the past month, and why you have to document them and why their success is so important to what the Pirates have done right now. We're going to preview Pirates versus Rays and see how the Pirates can win their third straight series in a row. And we have some accolades going on down on the farm with the Greensboro Grasshoppers. So we'll talk about that in the final part of today's show. But this bullpen, folks, it is a bullpen that has been interesting this year. It's a bullpen unit that going into the season, myself and a ton of you all looked at and said, this looks like a unit that looks really good. It looks like a unit that can be one of the best in the National League and all of baseball, especially after they got Aroldis Chapman in free agency. And it was a unit really all around, not just the back end, that looked like it could have considerable success this season and be arguably the best unit on the team. And it's interesting when you bring all this up because you look at the three-headed monster that they created of Chapman, Holderman, and Bednar, and it's had its moments. Obviously, David Bednar injured in spring training, didn't really have a spring training, struggles a lot at that point. Colin Holderman starts the season on the IL, so things were kind of iffy already. Then you throw in some guys like Ryan Borucki, you throw in Dauri Moreta and Carmen Mlodzinski, who last season as middle relief options were very formidable forces in that bullpen. They were guys that looked really good and exceeded expectations that you hoped would come into this season and continue to exceed those expectations. I'm a little amped today, as you can tell. But as we all remember, when the season started, as I already mentioned, Holderman started the season on the IL. David Bednar started the season injured a little bit. Ryan Borucki has not pitched in quite a while. Dauri Moreta obviously underwent Tommy John surgery in March. And Holderman, again, was a guy that was hurt. And suddenly this bullpen started to see some cracks, and every bullpen in baseball is going to see cracks. I urge everybody to go look at every single bullpen in Major League Baseball and kind of figure out how many guys have appeared in those bullpens and what's going on and injuries in those bullpens. Now, you obviously have some bullpens that are very good, like the Cleveland Guardians bullpen has been very good this season, and they have had kind of more of a consistent array of pitchers than you would see here in Pittsburgh, but it's a problem everywhere. And that's why you see the Dennis Santanas and jump scare, the Ben Hellers of the world and guys like that. You see those guys all the time. And the reason they have jobs is because teams just flat out need arms. And that's kind of what we've seen with the Pirates dealing with all these injuries. But when you look at what's been going on, I mean, you have guys like Jose Hernandez, for instance, right? A guy that last season was very good. Now he's an LA Dodger because of struggles that he had this season and the Pirates designating him for assignment. Kyle Nicholas, Hunter Stratton, those guys you hope would continue to improve, have had their moments as well this year also. But it's June 21st. June 21st, right? Still plenty of time left in this season for a lot of different things to change and a lot of different things to go on, right? And that's what we've kind of seen over the past 30 days with this bullpen is you've seen things suddenly start to change. You've seen this back end of the bullpen suddenly start to become that three-headed monster that we thought they could all become. You're suddenly starting to see this middle relief really start to kind of have some success. And over the past 30 days, I think that's where a lot of that success can be documented. Over the past 30 days, you look at David Bednar, Colin Holderman, and Aroldis Chapman. Folks, that trio has a combined ERA of 1.65 in a combined 34 appearances in the past 30 days. If you shorten that down to the past 15 days, that same trio of Bednar, Holderman, and Chapman has a combined ERA of 1, with Colin Holderman and Aroldis Chapman having not allowed an earned run in their past 8 2/3 innings. You'll take that all the time from the back end of the bullpen. And obviously, Bednar has still had his moments every once in a while. Chapman has his moments in terms of missing the strike zone quite a bit at times. And Colin Holderman, I think, should be an all-star reliever no matter what. And he should be in Arlington, Texas in the all-star break this year as a relief pitcher. But really where the bullpen struggles have been the most apparent has been the middle relief. You've seen the Pirates kind of just have a merry-go-round of options that they've went to. I already mentioned some of them. But now you're starting to see some of these guys kind of define their roles a little bit more in this bullpen. I wrote a great piece at Steel City Pirates on this about Luis Ortiz, who seems to finally be finding a role for himself. And so far that role has been coming in after Carmen Mlodzinski opens, which is what we'll see tonight. We'll get to that more later in the series preview for Rays and Pirates. But it's interesting to me because now that you're starting to kind of solidify these roles more, it's no shock that the bullpen is also finally starting to look like a group that can dominate games, especially when you have a starting pitching staff that is one of the best in baseball. So you continue to look at this, and Luis Ortiz, we'll go back to him for a second. He's been an opener twice in the past week and change, and he has a 1.62 ERA over his past 16 2/3 innings in his last 5 appearances. And really what's been big with Ortiz that you've seen is he's cutting down the walks, he's getting his strikeouts back, and he's not allowing a ton of base runners. So you like to see that from a guy in Luis Ortiz who was a former starter. Carmen Mlodzinski, who I just mentioned is his opener and will technically start tonight for the 3rd time in the past week and change. He was a pleasant surprise last year. We all remember that. But over the past 30 days, he's improved mightily as well. He has a 2.45 ERA over 14 2/3 innings over the past 30 days, and he's only allowing a mere 180 opponent's batting average along that time. So you're starting to see those guys. So now all of a sudden you have 5 guys over the past 30 days that you think you can trust, those being Bednar, Chapman, Holderman, Ortiz, and Mlodzinski. That's a very good problem to have. You then extend it even further to those guys I mentioned earlier in Kyle Nicholas and Hunter Stratton. Hunter Stratton right now currently on the IL, which is why Dalton Jeffries is on this roster, but they found their stride. Kyle Nicholas has a 4.76 ERA, and Hunter Stratton has a 0 ERA in the past 15 days. And those are very short outings, but you'll always take that. And obviously, you do hope, and I already spoke about this earlier this week, that when they get Martin Perez back and Quinn Priester and maybe Marco Gonzalez, you hope that things with this bullpen can just solidify and they can just be a group that is constantly available and constantly healthy. These bullpen games do kind of tax them out a little bit. And with Jared Jones and Paul Skeens on the mound this weekend, albeit great pitchers, they're not known to go deep into games. So the bullpen is going to get used a lot this weekend against the Tampa Bay Rays. And it's a bullpen that, albeit it still ranks 23rd in baseball in ERA at a 4.50, that has improved a lot. And some of that number is inflated by some of those guys that are no longer on the team. But when you consider how this bullpen continues to look and the mixture of the starting pitching staff that you have, if this bullpen can just be average, that's all you're asking out of it, the Pirates have a better chance of winning than they don't. And that's why their success is important, because your starters more often than not are going to give you 5 or 6 innings of good work at least, maybe 7 like we saw from Mitch Keller on Wednesday. If they do that consistently and the bullpen can just be an average force against opposing offenses, then the Pirates are going to win more often than not. And I think you can come to expect that in the coming weeks. And if they continue to do that throughout the course of the remainder of the season, Pirates are going to be in a great spot come trade deadline time, which again, we'll be talking about more in July. We have Pittsburgh versus Tampa Bay. on deck for you this weekend. We'll preview this series, the keys to the third straight series victory for the Pittsburgh Pirates, why this isn't your same old Tampa Bay Rays team, and more in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is brought to you by StitchFix.com. Style so good you could feel it at StitchFix.com/MLB, because when you get instant confidence from an outfit that makes you look really good, that's what I get at Stitch Fix, because with Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, your size, and your budget, and they do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. All I do is give my stylist my size, my style, and my budget preferences, and I order boxes when I want and how I want with no subscription required. And they send 5 just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. I keep what works, and the stuff I don't like, I just send back the rest. And my stylist always sends me just right pieces, and the fit is on point. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Now is the best time to get started at StitchFix.com/MLB and get $100 off. That's $25 off your first 4 fixes for a limited time only. That's StitchFix.com/MLB for $100 off. StitchFix.com/MLB. You have to redeem within 7 days of sign up. The offer does not include kids fixes, but go to StitchFix.com/MLB and check it out today. And folks, also make sure you check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, your 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and Amazon Fire TV, bringing you all the news in the sports world from the local hosts of Locked On, like myself, every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. You can also listen to Pirates games on the SiriusXM app on the go if you need to. And speaking of, the Pittsburgh Pirates will be facing off with the Tampa Bay Rays this weekend. We all kind of probably have a little bit of a bad feeling when the Rays and Pirates face off after last season's top AL versus top NL matchup that we got between the Rays and the Pirates in early May that kind of started the downslide of the 2023 season for the Pittsburgh Pirates. But this time around, things are a ton different. A lot different in terms of the Tampa Bay Rays and the Pittsburgh Pirates. A lot has changed between these teams for better and for worse. Much worse in terms of a certain Rays player that I will not talk about. But when you look at this series, it's very interesting because the Rays over the last couple of years have kind of been a team that a lot of other teams have tried to mold themselves around. The Rays always trading top guys and getting back prospects and kind of turning them around and getting a lot more production out of those guys in their previous home. And that's always been very interesting, the Rays model of how they do things. And you look at this Rays team, they obviously traded Tyler Glasnow earlier this season to the LA Dodgers. We already saw Glasnow earlier this season as he faced off against the Pittsburgh Pirates at PNC Park. And they lost a lot of guys too. And it's been an interesting team because usually the one word that comes to mind when you're talking about the Tampa Bay Rays is pitching. And currently right now, they don't have it. They just don't. But when we look at what has happened recently for both of these teams, obviously for the Pittsburgh Pirates, they get the massive series victory over the Cincinnati Reds in that 1-0 pitcher's duel that featured 5 hits between Mitch Keller and Hunter Green, with the Brian Reynolds clutch homer off Fernando Cruz in the 8th inning of that one. The Tampa Bay Rays, meanwhile, enter this series coming off a series win against the Minnesota Twins on the road, a series that series finale, folks. By the way, I was watching it because I had the series preview for Rays Pirates on Steel City Pirates. Go check it out. And it was a 7-run 9th inning that saw the Rays leading 6-3 that eventually led, of course, to the Minnesota Twins tying the game on a Jose Miranda 3-run home run. So the Rays did eventually pull it out in the 10th inning to win that one and secure a series victory. But as I mentioned, These are not the Rays of old. These are not the Rays that you've been accustomed to over the past half decade. They are a really interesting team because they're not overly bad in any metric, but they're not really good in any metric either, especially in pitching. A pitching staff, again, that is missing the likes of Shane McClanahan, who is one of the best pitchers in all of baseball, among others. But they rank 24th in Major League Baseball right now in ERA and 18th in WHIP. It's also a group that offensively just has not been all that great either. They rank 26th in OPS and 6th in strikeouts. So that may spell good things for the Pirates, because the Pirates pitching staff, along with that bullpen that we've seen do very good things over the past month, has been great. I mean, you had those 2 blow-up games in Minnesota and then the blow-up game against the Colorado Rockies. But since then, folks, the Pirates have entered really a kind of state of just pitching very well against everybody. They enter the series having allowed 2 runs or fewer in 5 of their past 6 games. So the starting pitching, which again is top 5 in quality starts in Major League Baseball, is going to continue to be a force of hopefully against the Rays. Now, before we kind of deep dive into some players that I want to look at against the Rays, and as well as some players for the Pirates that are playing well and some keys to win their 3rd straight series, the Rays do lead the all-time series against the Pirates 12-9, and they've won the last 6 matchups versus the Pittsburgh Pirates, with the Pirates' last victory against the Rays coming June 29th in 2017. So the Pittsburgh Pirates going to try to get the monkey off their back on this one, and it will be Carmen Mlodzinski starting this one against Ryan Pepiot. Ryan Pepiot, 4.57 ERA with 72 strikeouts and 19 walks. High strikeout guy. ERA is a little bit high. The whip is pretty good, so you'll like what you see from Ryan Pepiot, but he is a guy that the Pirates can attack, and he's a guy that they should try to attack as well. Meanwhile, you get Zach Eflin on Saturday. I will be in attendance tomorrow as Jared Jones will face off with Zach Eflin. 85 Ks and 22 walks for Jones, 55 Ks and 5 walks for Eflin. So again, high strikeouts, low walks. Aaron Savali, though, on Sunday against Policygenius has a 5.42 ERA, 22 walks to 79 strikeouts, and a 1.39 whip. So again, not terrible, but not great from what you would expect from the Rays starting pitching. But one guy that I think you're going to want to watch in this series, a guy that I would honestly not even mind the Pirates maybe targeting come trade deadline time, is Yandy Diaz. Yandy Diaz has had a phenomenal season and really has been the only consistent hitter for the Tampa Bay Rays all season, slashing in June 324, 354, 446, and 800 with RBIs, and 8 RBIs, including a 333 batting average in his past 15 games. And then you go back to that Minnesota series that they just played, and he obviously, of course, had 5 hits in those 3 games, so he's playing some good baseball. Meanwhile, Jose Caballero, who is the replacement, of course, for he who shall not be named, has not had a great season. 238 average on the season. That would suggest that you would at least see some pretty good advanced numbers, but you really haven't. A 652 OPS. So really, this whole Tampa Bay Rays offense has had problems, and if you can neutralize Yandy Diaz, which I think you can do, especially with Jones and Skeens on the mound in the 2 games to end the series, then the Pirates have a pretty strong chance of winning. Now, when you mention other things about this and what I want to watch and what I think the key for the Pirates in this series really is for them to win their 3rd straight series, it's because the Rays aren't the same old Rays. You want to watch this Pirates offense against this Tampa Bay Rays pitching staff. It's a Rays pitching staff that in this series will feature a starter with a 4 ERA or higher. The Rays bullpen ranks 25th in baseball with a 4.42 ERA. And really, after that Red series, which saw phenomenal pitching from Carson Spears, Nick Lodolo, and Hunter Green, and then, of course, from Falter, Skeens, and the other likes of the players in Keller that we saw in that series, you'd like to see this offense kind of bounce back a little bit. You'd like to see this offense have a big series against a pitching staff that they really should. And we've seen them give run support to Paul Skeens. Jared Jones, you've seen it now and then. And then, of course, you'll have Majinski and Ortiz tonight. So you'd like to see some run support so you can get that back into the bullpen that we spoke about earlier into the game in high leverage situations and let them win the game for you. Now, the Rays could very well pitch well against the Pirates. The Pirates offense has struggled. It's looked better. Obviously, Brian Reynolds has looked absolutely phenomenal as of late. I talked about that on Wednesday, and you've seen some success from other guys too. But you want to see the offense collectively have success against this Rays team because they can. It's a Rays offense or pitching staff again that they should dominate. Obviously, you don't see any lefties, which is kind of unfortunate, and they do avoid Taj Bradley, who has had pretty much a solid season for the Tampa Bay Rays. So that's what I would say. Pitch well, what you should with Jones and Skeens pitching in 2 out of these 3 games. Keep your bullpen as fresh as you can humanly possibly keep it. And against this Rays bullpen, attack it and get the starters out early because these starters are going to attack the Pirates offense. They're going to be looking for strikeouts, and they're going to be trying to do everything they can to get a lead early so that that bullpen for the Rays has some breathing room because it is one of the worst in all of baseball this season. So that's what you should be watching for at the big league level for the Pirates this weekend against the Tampa Bay Rays. But I want to highlight an accolade that happened down at the farm as the Greensboro Grasshoppers won the SLA League first half title. Who are some players down there that can make impacts down the line, and what does it mean in the grand scheme of things? We'll discuss in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Visit tnusa.com/lockedon or call 1-800-549-1000 because here on Locked On Pirates, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round. And what else is year-round? Well, that's collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. So don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. See the link in this episode description below, and don't have the IRS come after you. Folks, welcome to the final part of today's episode here on Friday, June 21st of Locked On Pirates. Again, if you don't know, follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions of everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And not directly correlated to the Pittsburgh Pirates as far as the big league roster, but the Greensboro Grasshoppers, their high A affiliate or single A affiliate, managed to win the first half of the SAL down there on the farm, which is a big deal. It's the first time that they won the first half since 2012. It guarantees them a playoff spot later this year in the SAL playoffs, which is a big deal for this Greensboro Grasshoppers team. And there's a lot of guys down there, and albeit a lot of these guys are very far away, they're not going to impact the 2024 team at all, but they are guys that with this window of competing kind of opening more and more by the day, you look at these guys and you say, I can see him eventually being a part of this roster, especially if they grow. And they will continue to grow, seeing as a lot of them are still in their early 20s and even teens at this point. And honestly, and obviously, of course, the best player on the Greensboro Grasshoppers, stats aside, is Termarr Johnson. We all know about Termarr Johnson. I love Termarr Johnson, the 4th overall pick from the 2022 or 2023 or 2022 MLB draft. Am I getting my years right? I believe I am. Yes, because he was in between Henry Davis and Paul Skeens. And Termarr Johnson has had quite the minor league career so far. He's posted an 807 OPS with 25 homers and 91 RBIs and 26 stolen bases and 600 plus career at bats. Now, as far as this season is concerned, he hasn't looked all that great from a statistical standpoint. Not playing terrible, but you would like to see the average kind of come up a little bit more. He is playing in Greensboro as well, which is a notoriously hitter-friendly park. 217 batting average, but his OPS is still a 741, still has 6 homers. But so far in June, Termarr's looked really good. He has an 845 OPS on the month, which should suggest good things. And the kid just turned 20 years old last week. So belated happy birthday to Termarr Johnson, who just turned 20. So he's no longer a teenager on June 11th. And this is a guy, folks, coming out of the draft, and I've mentioned it a million times, his hit tool is amazing. He's going to eventually be a part of this roster, maybe as soon as 2025, easily 2026. He's going to make an impact, whether we like it or not, on this roster, and whether the Pirates like it or not on this roster eventually, and they sure will like it, of course. Now, obviously played shortstop a lot in high school, so still kind of learning second base. He'll never really be a plus defender either, being just 5'8" until he continues to grow. But even then, I don't think he'll ever really have the extension or in the range to be a crazy defender. But at second base, you don't really need it all that much. It's not really going to be the fielding that's going to carry him. It's going to be the bat. You look at Charles McAdoo, another guy who's having one heck of a season down there as a third baseman, posting a 976 OPS with 9 homers and 52 RBIs and 223 at-bats for the Grasshoppers this season. He was a 13th round selection last year, posting a 326 average with 14 home runs and 76 RBI so far in his career. Folks, this kid can hit. And he's the number 30 ranked prospect in the Pirate system. When they eventually update that on MLB Pipeline, I think he'll definitely go up. He, of course, is a San Jose State product, has a plus arm talent at a 50 grade, so you know that he could play at the hot corner or even at shortstop. He could even be an outfield option because he's so low in the system. You don't really know where they're going to play him just yet, but he's 6'1", 210 pounds. Maybe you even move him to first base if he keeps hitting. And if he keeps hitting, and eventually gets to the higher levels and keeps hitting, this is a guy that you're going to keep your eyes on for quite a while as well. It's just more proof that you're going to have to hit in Altoona and above that. Lonnie White Jr., also having one hell of a season as well. He's not hit all that great with 168 and a 664 OPS, but a 794 OPS on his career. He's an athlete. If you listen to Gary, Jim Stam, and Jeff Carr on the Pirates fan forum, these guys that are athletes, much like Lonnie White Jr. and, of course, O'Neal Cruz and Ellie De La Cruz, they learn how to play the game of baseball, and it takes them a little bit longer than some of these pure baseball players. Obviously, former wide receiver, was going to go to Penn State, decided not to, came to the Pittsburgh Pirates, and it's been a good decision for him. He's going to be an athletic kid. He has a 70 run grade, a 50 arm grade, a 60 fielding grade. Lonnie White Jr. is going to be fun to watch here soon. Jack Brannigan is a top 10 prospect that a lot of you probably know now. 50 power tools, 739 OPS this season, career 810 OPS in the minors, 181 at-bats right now, has 7 homers, which means he is equating to about a homer every 26 at-bats. And he won't pitch as a professional like he did at Notre Dame, so you don't need to expect that either. But he's a toolsy kid. He can do a lot of things. Hunter Barco, left-handed pitcher, part of that Pirates pitching factory that I love to mention so much. Obviously had Tommy John surgery in 2022, which sidelined him for that entire season, but he's now pitched a lot since coming back from that in June of 2023. And he's had a pretty good season this year. And overall, really, through 20 career starts and 22 appearances, he has a 3.66 ERA, 84 strikeouts and 25 walks. He has a 70% strikeout rate last season, and of course a 66% strike rate on his career. The slider and the changeup are going to be what carries him. The fastball is going to come along eventually, but the slider and changeup rank higher than his fastball right now. So with that 3-pitch arsenal and including being 6'4", I think you expect Barco to move on and be a starter throughout his career. But keep watching the system. I know there's a lot to like about the Pirates roster. A lot of these young players that we were looking forward to have finally come up, but there's still more coming along the way. And it's awesome to notify you guys that, of course, they won the first half of the SAL and have some real talent that is going to make an impact at some point. Folks, thank you so much for tuning into the Locked On Pirates podcast this week and today. You guys are the best. Follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. You can find this show on YouTube and all of your audio platforms because it is free and available to you every Monday through Friday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. With that said, I'm Ethan Smith. Follow me on Twitter. Have a beautiful weekend. I'll see you tomorrow at the ballpark if you're there. And also check out the North Shore 9 tailgate tomorrow. It's going to be a fun time. But folks, have a beautiful rest of your Friday. See you tomorrow. But until then, see you on the flip side.